can't give you a straightforward insider's perspective on what it's like with a lot of games. But so yeah, with actually playing games and what it feels like and stuff, all I can really do is tell you what I've seen, what I've heard from other people. I still really do love games, so I tend to watch a lot of playthroughs and gameplay reviews and just people dissecting and going over and explaining the games. It's obviously not the same as playing the games myself, but I understand that much. But it's something I generally enjoy doing. Recently, Elden Ring's network test came out, and a lot of players seem to have, well, a lot of people in general seem to have the complaint that it's just Dark Souls in a big world. And at first I thought, so, so what? We all love Dark Souls, and I'm saying this even as someone who hasn't played the game at all. Just from watching people play the game, it's a game I've always wanted to get my hands on. Actually, wait, no, I've played like an hour or so of Dark Souls 1 because a friend of mine had the console, I said the console, he had the game on his system when I went over to visit him. So, yeah, I've played like an hour of the game at most, and even then, it was a game I just wanted to play so much more of. I love the stories. Yes, you can say that they are essentially, how do I put it? They're very vague and very, you know, how do I put it? Yeah, they're very vague and left up to a lot of interpretation. So it's more of the players building the stories in their heads than the story actually being told. But I see it. Okay, this might be a kind of a big comparison, but I see their style of storytelling very similar to the storytelling you see when you read like ancient history. Only the big details are taken down, or the small details that affect things in a huge way. Only those details are taken down. General little interactions are not recorded. They are not. You can only infer what it was like. So it allows people to build, not really what it allows, but basically it's very similar to that style of storytelling. So our imagination is sort of left to run wild. No, why am I explaining why the story is good? A lot of people love the story, so I don't really need to explain why the story is good. But that's just sort of the way I've always seen it in this, let's say, little details. I don't mean little insignificant details. I mean like smaller details in terms of scale. Yes, in terms of scale, like what this person did for the entire week doesn't really matter compared to what this person did on one day in that entire year. And it's only that one thing that they did that was so impactful to the world. That's the only thing that's going to be recorded. And maybe little details that either impacted or were a result from that decision or that action that the person made. Basically, that's how I've always seen their style of storytelling, and I've always really liked it like that. I've liked it like that. That's a weird way of putting it, and I've always really liked it. And that was even what got me into watching Vaati videos. He was sort of the person, he's sort of my go-to guy for Dark Souls lore. I know he doesn't really have everything, but he's basically the perfect combination of great voice, great narration, and solid storytelling that helps me go get through all the stories. So I don't necessarily have all their stories, but from the ones I have, they just have such a grasp on atmosphere. Why am I talking about FromSoftware's grasp on atmosphere? Everyone knows they have a good grasp on atmosphere. What I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to say is simple. Their style of storytelling, I don't even remember how I got here. Their style of storytelling has always sort of worked. Now, back to the point I was trying to make. Relating to Elden Rings, at least the problem I think, again, I haven't played the network test. a lot of people haven't played the networks just at least now, but from what I've seen, I think people are afraid of FromSoftware becoming complacent, like Ubisoft or Activision, where once they figured out a formula that works, they're just going to take that and infinitely reproduce it, which is basically what Activision has been doing with Call of Duty, what Ubisoft has been doing with both Far Cry and Assassin's Creed, where it's basically the same game being produced over and over and over again. They just change and simplify little things. So they just add little things that make the game more convenient for people, but otherwise, it's still the same game. It's to the point where creativity is kind of lost. They see other games do it, other games like Titanfall, this amazing system of mobility that the player just has, and they take that and implement it into their game, which is still basically the same game, but now it's not lacking behind in terms of the mobility that other games are offering, other games like Apex Legends and whatnot are offering. Now their game has that mobility. Or also a grappling hook. For example, even Far Cry did this as well. Oh, grappling hooks are being implemented. They've kind of always been around, and everyone seems to enjoy having a grappling hook around. So why not take that grappling hook and put it into our game? We're not going to change pretty much anything else about the game. It's pretty much still the same game, same villain type, same hero, same story in general. Like, I haven't played Far Cry. Oh wait, no, I've played Far Cry Primal. Yeah, I've only really played Far Cry Primal. But yeah, it's basically the same story, same world, same everything. But now you get a grappling hook. You see what I mean? I can't really explain these concepts of how these games have sort of lost their creative ability. I can't explain it as well as people who have played the games and people who have gone through these, people who have played the games and have thoroughly gone through why this is a problem. But I have listened to them enough to, I think, understand where they're coming from. So, from an outsider's perspective, I think that might be the fear that people have with Elden Ring. If Elden Ring being what people think it is, which so far I've watched quite a few reviews that say that it isn't. People are assuring us that it's not just Dark Souls in a big world, because there's quite a lot of changes you'd have to make to Dark Souls for it to work in an open world. But basically, it's not just Dark Souls in a big world with a horse. But the problem is, it's very, very similar to Dark Souls. One of the things FromSoftware was able to achieve with their lineup so far was making them distinct, giving each one a distinct identity from the other. So the Dark Souls series, the Demon Souls series is their predecessor, like their spiritual predecessor. So of course there's similarities between them, but the Dark Souls series in general, heck, the Souls series in general, they have their identity. Bloodborne has a completely different identity. It is unique to itself. Yes, it still has that atmosphere that FromSoftware is just amazing at creating, and it still has that, would you say, gameplay loop? Yes, it still has a somewhat similar gameplay loop, but it is, how do I put it? But FromSoftware took out the time to fundamentally change the game so that you understand that you are receiving a completely different game. This is a game with its own identity. It is its own IP. No one is ever going to think, oh, like, for example, Bloodborne came out after Dark Souls 2. So you have Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, which was, but Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, and then you have Bloodborne. And then you have Dark Souls 3. But Bloodborne was able to stand out so much as its own thing that Dark Souls 3 didn't feel like, oh, Bloodborne 2 or it's just such a different game, a different world, different environment, completely different story. And Sekiro came out and it was so different. Not just so different from Dark Souls, it was so different from Bloodborne as well. It was its own thing, completely different. The best part of these new unique IPs that they create is that one of the things they've been known for is their combat system, how rewarding and challenging it has always been. What they've done with their different IPs, at least the main IPs, that's what I'm talking about, the main IPs, is they've always found a way to not only improve but fundamentally change the combat system for each new IP. So, for example, where you had Dark Souls with its very slow, steady combat system where your moves matter, you have to be sure and you have to be cautious. Bloodborne comes out with this fast-paced, intense, get in there, get out, get in there, get out type of combat where you just need to go for it. And then Sekiro is a different thing entirely. So it feels kind of weird that Elden Ring doesn't seem to have an identity. I think that's the problem. Elden Ring being Dark Souls in an open world is a great concept, but it sort of feels like something you'd expect an indie studio to do. Because usually when FromSoftware decides to create a new IP, they create something that stands out on its own, something that stands on its own as its own thing. So Elden Ring being so closely linked to Dark Souls, being pretty much, again, like I said, I know that there's more to it than that, but yeah, having such a close link to Dark Souls kind of prevents the game from having its own identity. For me, when I'm watching Elden Ring, it still sort of feels like I'm watching someone play Dark Souls. It feels so similar to Dark Souls that it doesn't feel like its own IP. Yes, Elden Ring, I am putting all my bets on Elden Ring being a great game. Not just a good game, but a great game. Yet, it just doesn't feel like it's going to be its own game. Which is something that just can't be said about any other game in FromSoftware's lineup. Every new IP so far has been unique. So when people say Elden Ring is Dark Souls 4, they don't mean it's just Dark Souls 3 pasted. They mean it's an improved version of Dark Souls 3 with a few new changes put into an open world. And to be fair, that's kind of what it is. Elden Ring feels less like it's arriving on its own merit and more like it's depending on its association with Dark Souls to succeed. However, that's not a bad thing. It's obvious that what FromSoftware wanted to focus on with this new IP was the open world. And we all know how bad it can be when a game developer is lackluster with the creation of their open world. You have these huge empty spaces. And in order to avoid that, FromSoftware seems to have put a lot of their energy into creating and filling out the open world of Elden Ring. They would obviously have to pull some of the manpower that would normally be working on innovating and creating a brand new combat system and a brand new system of movement. Instead, they decided to take a system that they know works, recycle the Dark Souls 3 system, add a few new changes, improve it, and place it as the base from which they're going to build this amazing open world around. Because what they want to focus on for Elden Ring is the open world. And that makes sense. That's something that is a very good decision. Dark Souls in an open world is something that the fans have wanted for a while. They can show their ability in terms of creating an open world while still giving the fans a formula that they love and already know, so that the fans can focus on exploring this open world that they've now created. So I don't see it as a flaw, I see it as a feature. I think that's the best way to describe it. I guess that's sort of what I've been able to glean from general complaints. Okay, so my though those general complaints aren't obviously, they're just the general complaints aren't the way I feel. If someone were to ask me how I feel about the game, which would be kind of silly because I haven't I haven't played any of the games, but again, but my opinion is going to be still with the I haven't played any of the games. If I got Elden Ring now, and even if it, God forbid, turned out to be a straight up Dark Souls in a big world, I wouldn't care because I've never played Dark Souls properly. Never played any of the other games, so sitting down to play Dark Souls in a big world is probably going to be awesome for me. The same thing with a lot of other games. Like when people talk about how the Far Cry games are just creatively bankrupt, or when they talk about like how Ubisoft has been making the same games for years. I don't mind if someone were to give me a copy of Far Cry 6 right now, I would be happy because I haven't played any of the other games aside from Far Cry Primal, so this would be a Far Cry game as far as I'm concerned. I can understand how for people who are easily able to get the games and play them as they come out, it feels kind of tiring having to get a different game that essentially boils down to the same game you've already played. But yeah, for me, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Same way I haven't been able to tell the difference in graphic fidelity for years because I'm just watching it on someone's. I'm just watching a recording of it. I can't really tell the big difference. Like games haven't looked particularly new to me since graphics in games haven't looked particularly new since like God of War. I mean the most recent God of War, not the most recent one that is yet to come out. I mean the most recent one that is already out, just God of War, that one. My one thing with Elden Ring where I feel a bit disappointed, again, outsider's opinion. Like I said, I've always loved the storytelling and the atmosphere that FromSoftware has always been able to build. They really sell the dead civilization. Like, it would be like, how do I put it? The type of storytelling when you have a dead civilization and all you have access to are little notes or little pieces of artifacts from their time, and you can only really guess what it was like back then, which is what they've been doing for years, and it works really well. My problem is, I thought with Elden Ring, I mean, we've only seen the network test, but I actually thought we might get to see at least one of those civilizations still alive. Like, for the most part, they always have their dead civilizations. They always have these towns that have this great story behind them, but now the town is pretty much empty. You have maybe the people are still there. For example, in Bloodborne, the people are still there, but most of them are hiding. So you're not going to get to interact with very many people. Just certain, again, very compelling individuals with amazing voice acting, but you're still mostly going to get to interact with a few people that can only tell you what the world was like, but you never get to see that world for yourself. That's what I thought they were going to change with Elden Ring. Give you at least maybe one city or one place, even if it's a small village, where you get to see the world that they built. Like you get to see it actually active. You get to see an active, yes, you get to see an active civilization that they've built, rather than just hear about what the civilization was like. Again, I don't really have a problem with that style of storytelling. I guess you could just sort of call it wishful thinking, sort of wanting to see what a civilization they build would actually be like. What it would, just imagining what it would be like going through a town. Imagining what it would be like going through a town that FromSoftware actually created. Like a town from software actually created for you to experience. Because in most open worlds, you expect at least one or two towns. At least one or two towns. So getting to see, for example, let's see, let me think of an open world. It's sort of the way I was thinking of something the way Breath of the Wild has this expansive, massive open world, but they also have these fully fleshed out, bustling towns that you can experience. I was sort of expecting at least one or two of those. Like I said, we've only seen the network test. I don't really know. I don't really know what the rest of the world is like, but I was really sort of hoping to see one. That's really my only complaint, and it's not really a complaint. It's just sort of wishful thinking on my part. Okay, that's just me. So I have podcasts like this up every week or so. So if you're interested, you can subscribe to the channel and check them out when they come out. If you have a topic you'd like to see an outsider's perspective on, just let me know and I'll make a video on it. Thank you for watching.